Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, where our job is to help you build visibility, professional credibility, and connection with your ideal client by putting the human at the centre of innovative marketing, so you can build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship with your ideal clients. I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm honoured that you're here with me. If you haven't joined our wonderful marketing transformation community yet, go to innovabiz.co and collect your free gift as well. Do subscribe to the show and also leave a review because it helps others find us. Let's get into today's masterclass on this InnovaBuzz podcast.
It's all about really staying true to who you are. And, life is a learning experiment, right? We're constantly learning how we can show up and create impact in a way that puts a smile on our face. And you know what? You don't get taught that at school, and you don't get taught that in jobs. You have to play an experiment and work it out for yourself. And for me, that's been the richest part of my life experience, is getting some things right and getting some things wrong. And you've just got to keep tuning yourself up to it. And then once you get more attuned to it, make sure the stuff that's important to you shows up every single day. Don't settle for a life that's half what it could be.
Welcome back. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. If you haven't yet listened to my recent conversations with strategy and innovation expert Rita McGrath, and with tech investor and business mentor Johan Nogueira, then do check them out after you've listened to today's episode, of course. I'm really excited to have on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest today, Chris Barez-Brown, a master of transformation. He's fascinated by people and what makes them tick. By teaching folk how to think differently, he makes their lives and businesses more technicolour in hue. Now, this is a really high-energy, exciting conversation, so strap yourselves in. Chris is the author of 4 books. He's an internationally acclaimed speaker and an expert in the world of wellbeing and creative thinking. His latest book is Wake Up, Escaping a Life on Autopilot, and it's brought positive wellbeing to people all around the globe. Chris is also founder of Upping Your Elvis, a consultancy who embed a human, energetic and creative working culture to build healthy, happy businesses. And he's the founder of the charity Talk It Out. In our discussion today, Chris talked to me about celebrating your uniqueness and unique stories. We talked about talking to yourself as a creativity and innovation tool. And we discussed the self-awareness that comes from truly engaging with your feelings. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Chris Barez-Brown. Hi, I'm your host Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome today to the InnovaBuzz podcast, all the way from Lyme Regis, Dorset in the United Kingdom, Chris Barez-Brown, the founder of Upping Your Elvis, which is a consultancy who embed a human, energetic and creative working culture to create happy, healthy businesses. He's also the founder of the charity Talk It Out. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Chris. It's a real privilege to have you as my guest.
Oh, great to be here, Jürgen. Thanks for having me on.
Dr. Mark Goulston, who was our guest on episode 305 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we have a conversation with you. So a big hello to Mark.
He's such a great guy. I love that man.
Yeah, and we had a great conversation, and I think we published that fairly recently as we're recording this, and I remember there were quite a lot of comments on the social media posts on that. People loved it.
Yeah. He's got some great angles on life. He really understands what makes people tick, and has some very simple ways to explain it, which is, I think, what we need when it comes to psychology.
Now, before we start talking about all things energy and creative working culture, what brings you energy?
Oh my gosh, big question. Well, as my business is all about energy, there are so many things that I really enjoy. I mean, I've just done my morning routine in the last hour, Jürgen. So, when I get out of bed in the morning, I don't look at anything digital. I drink a pint of water with a pinch of sea salt in it because we need to get hydration back. I then go and do some exercise, and I've just jumped in my pond, which is cold, just to get everything moving. And then I just sit quietly and just think about my day. What's my intention for it? What is it I want to achieve today? And I find that is a brilliant way to set up my energy for whatever comes next. So that by the time I come to you, hopefully I'm on good form. So that's one little thing I do that gives me great energy every day.
Yeah, yeah, a pint of water, that's a lot of water. I drink, it's probably about half a litre of water with a little bit of lemon juice and honey, but a pint, that's a lot more, isn't it?
Well, no, that's about half a liter. That's about right.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's what you need because your brain is so dehydrated when you wake
Yeah,
up. You got to get it going. So yeah, we're in the same direction.
great. All right, so when you get started then with that routine, so is there any meditation or reflection or journaling that you do?
No, it's interesting. I don't tend to journal now. I have done journaling in the past. I think it's very effective. I've got another tool that I use a lot, which is Talk It Out, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, which is a simple way of untangling your subconscious thoughts, which is just a walking, talking technique. But the key thing for me is that if I just jump into my day, as so many of my clients do, they wake up, the first thing they do is they look at their phone. And usually they do that in bed, if not sneakily in the bathroom. You've just lost all of that amazing clarity that you wake up with, and you've suddenly started to put lots of different things on your whiteboard, which are other people's demands and other people, asking for your attention. So it's really important for me that I have some quiet time at the beginning of the day where I think, look, what do I need to do today, so that when I finish my day, I know it's been successful. I know I've used my talents in the right way, and that just needs a little bit of time and space. And journaling works well. Talk it out for me is one of my favorite ways of doing it.
All right, well, we'll get to talk it out in a moment, but tell us a little bit more about the concept behind upping your Elvis first.
Sure. No, happy to. So well, the name came from Bono. When he was doing his Third World Debt campaign, he used to go into organizations and he wanted to work out who to play with really quickly. So he used to ask what I think is a brilliant question. He used to ask, who's Elvis around here? Now, when you ask that question, Jürgen, you can probably imagine people can answer it immediately, because what you're really asking is, who here's a bit of a brand, a bit of a maverick? They get stuff done. They got
Mhm.
loads of energy about them. They love what they do, and they stand out from the crowd. Now, I fundamentally believe that business needs more Elvis now than ever, and I also know that we've all got a bit more Elvis we can bring. So we help all sorts of organizations, everyone from kind of Unilever to Nike to Coca-Cola, get more of that Elvis showing up every day. And a lot of it for me is about energy, as we've already mentioned. So, if you get your energy right, work is fun and it's easy. And if you get your energy wrong, it is quite the opposite. So we help people learn what makes them tick, what they can do to get their energy right every day. And then obviously, how do they deploy that within a business scenario?
Mm. Now, why is it you think that people kind of suppress that Elvis? Because you said there's a bit of Elvis in everyone.
Sure. Well, look, there's all sorts of reasons for it. One really big one is that we love to be accepted by the tribe. So if you think back 50,000 years ago, we were all parts of tribes. Our number one instinct every day was to survive, and actually being part of a tribe gave us a good chance for that, because we get protection, we get more access to food, etc., etc. So we've got this deep longing to belong to a tribe, and our brains haven't changed a lot since then. So we've got the same drive today. Our tribe is now the business that we work at. So we will do anything that we can to adapt our behavior. I'll give you a quick example. I was working with Unilever some years ago. I was doing a big change program for them, and there was a lady who came to my house for a 5-day program. It was a real intense retreat here down on the south coast of England. And on the first day, she walked in, and she was a little bit prickly. And you can just get a sense that somebody doesn't want to be there. Yeah,
Mm.
well, I got that all over, right? Anyway, she threw herself into it, and she was great, and we learned a lot from each other. On the last day, she told this story. She said that when she joined Unilever, she joined as a graduate trainee, and she was all shiny and bright, and she was fantastic, and she wanted to change the world, as so many of us did.
Mm.
And she remembered very vividly on her second week going on one of these insight immersions that as marketing people love to do, or as innovators. Now, she lived in Durban, so she went to a township where she got to experience firsthand how people with a lot less resource than she was used to cooked and cleaned and lived their lives. And for anyone who's done that, it's a very emotive thing. Now, on the way back to the bus at the end of the day, she heard this noise coming from a disused tire by the side of the road. So she went over to investigate, feeling quite curious. And within it, she found 3 abandoned puppies. Now, she knew she couldn't save them all, but she decided she could save one. So she picked up a puppy and she took it on the bus, where all of these Unilever execs laid into her. They were like, oh my God, honestly, you graduate trainees, you're too soft, you're too emotional. You've got to be more professional if you're going to get ahead in Unilever. And as she sat there on my workshop, she realized that's exactly what she'd done. She spent 12 years becoming the person she thought they wanted her to be.
Yeah.
Tougher, less emotional, more professional. And the way she summarized it, she said she stopped picking up puppies. Now,
Mm.
she didn't decide one day to do that. She just did that bit by bit, day by day, and we all do the same. We can't help it. Any job that we're in, we will adapt our behavior a little bit over time so that we are accepted by our tribe. Now, the great news is she's been promoted many times since then. She is picking up puppies again because she's had a chance to step back from that busyness and recalibrate and reconnect with actually who she is and what makes her tick. And I think that's what we all need to be able to do, and that's what we do with Upping Your Elvis.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love the puppy story. Yeah, I feel a bit sorry for the other. How many were there?
Other two puppies.
Yeah,
I'm sure there was another generous passerby that day. That's what I
yeah,
believe,
yeah, yeah.
anyway.
Another intern that hadn't been
Yeah,
hadn't been set upon or
exactly.
mind adjusted, if you like. All right, now, so thinking of the bigger company's perspective, how can because I mean, let's put the premise out there that with people having that level of energy and having that sense of I can change the world and I can do things, but I've got to do it my way, and there's a contribution that I have to make. It's my superpower, which is unique to me. The premise is that that can be a contribution to that organization, and if they kind of get everybody fitting into the same mold, you lose that. So how can an organization foster that kind of culture that everybody has the ability to play to their superpower and at the same time still be aligned with the vision of the company?
It's a great question, Jürgen, and that's a bit of an art, not a science. But I think there's been a massive shift. So we have gone from this command and control and hierarchy way of running businesses. I say we have. Most of my clients have. There's still loads of them out there. There's a lot of work still to be done. Uh, and that old traditional way, thought that people were assets that needed to be sweated. We couldn't be trusted on our own. We needed to be micromanaged. If we weren't at our desk, we were probably goofing off. There was that mindset. I think we've come a long way to know that actually that's rubbish. And actually, if we trust people and if we create the conditions for them to truly be themselves, they will do much better work. And if we give them enough freedom to do it their way, the work quality goes up. But obviously, there's a big mindset change there. And there's also a big behavioral change. You need companies and leaders to be more about, as I said, creating conditions rather than managing and directing all the time, which basically means you've got to set up more conversations. You've got to create up more flexible environments. You've got to celebrate uniqueness, which a lot of people aren't so good at doing. You've got to capture more stories of people truly being themselves and then helping deliver for the business, because I think a lot of culture change comes from creating what we call social proof. Examples of, we can point at it and say, look, they did that, it was great for these reasons, this is how you can do it, isn't that good? You need to be communicating those out constantly, and the more that we celebrate the uniqueness of the individual, then the more chance that everyone else will latch onto it. But it's not for everyone. There are some people that love to be told what to do, right? So you can't force people into this. You have to create the conditions and then encourage them to do it, and if they step forward, yippee. If they don't, you need to make it okay for them to be a bit more directed, because that's just the way of work.
Mm. Yeah, that's right. And it's kind of it comes back to the culture, isn't it? If it's the expectation is that you just climb the corporate ladder through the standard kind of, you do a good job, and if you're visible enough, or if you have a mentor, then you get promoted to the next level, but nobody actually teaches you what to do it. that next level. They
Sure.
assume that the skills you had that got you there are the ones that'll carry you forward. And also, if someone then says, "Well, actually, I'm happy where I am," then it's seen as negative in some regards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? There are some jobs people just love and they want to stay in it because it suits
Mm.
them and their lifestyle and how they contribute. There is nothing wrong with that. And that is the beauty of the philosophy that, everyone's different, right? What we need to do is help them understand who they are, what their needs are, maybe their purpose, and then cultivate an environment where they can live that every day. And you know what? It'll change because, the number of times I've done work with leadership teams on what their purpose are, and they've all got very agitated. And when I've started to say, look, what is the problem with this? The belief that comes out is you have a life purpose, and it's consistent for the whole of your days, and therefore they're very nervous about articulating it in case they get it wrong. And it's just
Yeah.
rubbish, right? It's rubbish. We are constantly changing. The world in which we live changes. Our context is always shifting. The best leaders go, look, this is who I am today. This is what I stand for. I've woken up. I've done my morning routine. I've got clear on what today's about. Tomorrow could be completely different. you know,
Mhm.
but we just tune into it and we flex as we go. And I think that gives people way bigger smiles on their faces, way more energy, and way more chance for success.
Yeah, yeah. No, you talk a lot about doing energy experiments, and I think
Yeah,
a vision. I mean, I used to do vision stuff in the corporate world, and we'd have these massive get-togethers. We'd fly people from all around the world to some resort somewhere, have facilitators come in. Some of those facilitators were just brilliant,
yeah.
and you'd have this 1 week event, and you'd come up with this brilliant document, and then after that it would go into a drawer and didn't see the light of day until maybe the next business planning round, and then people would look at it and say, "Huh, what was that about?"
Yeah, that
So yeah, a living, breathing document is a much better way to do it, and constantly modifying it.
I agree. And what we get brought in to do a lot with organizations is actually take that document and turn it into what people do on a daily basis. Because my belief is quite straightforward. If you look at a lot of the big change programs that have been run by your McKinseys and your Bains and all these great organizations, a lot of them fail. Now, depending on which research you read will dictate how many fail. But I've heard everything from 70 to 85%. And usually that's because there's so much change that goes on and it's so complicated that actually the kind of the caveman in us reverts to norm and goes, it's
Mm,
too scary. And my belief is if you want change to stick, it's the simple things that you do every day that make a difference. And if you can just look at what people do and how they add value and how they use their time and just make it 10% better every day. For example, meetings, how many meetings do people attend on a daily basis? If you can make them 10% better because people know why they're there, how to behave, they run them in an energetic and human way, that makes a massive difference to a culture. So look at how people spend their time and make that better rather than just putting a vision miles away from today's reality and hoping that they get there,
mhm.
because that's an impossible leap.
Yeah, it comes back to doing the little things that move you forward. And I'm a big fan of James Clear's work in Atomic Habits. He talks about that in and also in a lot of his weekly newsletters that he sends out. There's some brilliant stuff there, just one-liners about, what are you doing to move the needle forward today kind of stuff, but very specific. And the more you embed that in behavior, the more the big vision that you've got in front of you somewhere is going to come true because you're actually taking the steps to get there.
Agree. Yeah. Yeah. It's good work.
Hmm. All right. So you mentioned earlier Talk It Out, and that's one of the tools you use. Now, I know you sort of developed this for very specific purposes, but it seems to be a tool that has lots of applications. So tell us more about it.
Yeah, and of course. So talk it out. Actually, I first developed. I wrote about it in 2005 in my first book, How to Have Kick-Ass Ideas, and I was using it very specifically then as a creativity tool that we deployed for innovation. Because it's a very simple way of getting deeper into your subconscious. Now, 95% of your processing is subconscious, so if you can access that, we just get better insights and better ideas, quite simply.
Hmm.
And it was designed as a walking, talking technique. So one person would walk and talk flat out about whatever the project is, while the other person just listened. And after a while, you get through your conscious story and you start to access the shadows of your mind, and interesting things pop up, right? And we've tested it with thousands of people over the years. But what's been really interesting is that over those years, a lot of people come back with obviously great ideas and great insight. They get a lot more clarity, to be honest, as well. Um, But the number of people that came back just saying, I just feel better as a result of doing this. So it gave me a bit of a hunch that it would be a really good emotional and mental well-being tool. So we researched it with the University of Bristol, and lo and behold, if you do talk it out, your anxiety decreases, your happiness increases, and 85% of people feel happier as a result of doing it. And it's something that you can do every day. It's very simple. It's very human. You don't need any training in it. So we decided to set up a charity to get it out there and to help more people on the planet. Because there's, would you believe, 450 million people on the planet today who have a mental health challenge. And the really frightening thing is 2/3 of those won't talk to another human being. So we've decided to turn it into an app because you are 5 times more likely to talk to a machine than a person. And obviously you'll be a lot more honest and less filtered if you do so. So my big life mission right now is to get that out to as many people on this planet as possible. And it's really exciting work.
Yeah. That sounds fascinating. I mean, I'm reminded of an exercise we do on the subconscious part of it, an exercise we do to help people clarify their dream clients or their dream audience if they're presenting or podcasting. And it involves doing empathy mapping, but I get them to draw because that kind of bypasses that filter. And then I ask them, okay, when you've done the drawing on the map there, now explain it to somebody else and we'll record that, because then, and so I'm guessing that's probably a similar thing happening there.
Yeah, I mean, I've done drawing techniques for years. I love them. We used to call them a re-expression technique. And if you draw about something, it's good because it takes you out of your usual kind of way of processing. But as you say, the power is explaining your drawing to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's the bit where the magic happens. And actually, it's a bit like talk it out that way. You know, when you start to go deeper into your subconscious and you are completely unfiltered, it is amazing what pops out that you have no idea about. Now, you know, as I said, 95% of our processing is subconscious, and therefore, obviously, our thinking creates our feeling, and our feeling creates our daily reality. You know, because 95% of it we don't know about. Most people have no clue as to why they have a good day versus a bad. No clue at all, because it's all in the deep recesses of the mind. So what talk it out does, a bit like your drawing technique, is it flushes that out. So you can look at it in the cold light of day and say, look, that's what I'm thinking in my head. Is that useful?
Yeah.
You know, is it something that I want to carry on, or do I want to change it? You know, and actually, if there are things that are bugging me, do they need more attention or less attention? And actually, it just gives you more choice. And being able to step back and look at it is an amazing, liberating thing. And you know, that's why we're so determined to get it out there, because so many people need some help on it, especially actually with what's been going on the planet right now with isolation and lockdown and all the challenges with business. A lot of people just aren't processing because they can't bump into their friends and talk about things. They're not getting the help that they need. So now is a really urgent time to get it out.
So how does it kind of get people talking in the first place, particularly if you're inside your head, which, you know, I'm guessing that if you're feeling a little bit down, or maybe you've got some mental issues, that you might be more inside your head than a typical extrovert who's always bubbly and always talking.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, our research is suggesting that there are certain people that do this all the time. And actually, my wife is a classic example. If there is something going on with her, I will find her underneath a big tree in our garden talking to one of her many friends. It's her way of processing, right? But unfortunately, not everybody is as attuned to that as she is. And she tends to do it static. And walking is really important, because actually when you walk, you process kinesthetically, so you get more quickly into your subconscious. So there are some people that do it. There's a lot who don't. So our research is suggesting that actually most people are going to be far more comfortable talking into the app than ever phoning up a friend, especially, and you know, I hate to generalize, but the research suggests that it's the case, especially guys, because a lot of us are particularly bad at sharing really what's going on for ourselves. So there's all sorts of different demographics that need a bit more help than others. There's a lot of stigma attached to it, and there's a lot of issues with access, because a lot of people cannot get to friends or to proper therapeutic help, or have the money to do so. So the great thing about having the app is that, you know, that means that everyone can get it for free. That's the idea. So what we're doing is we're just making it more about an everyday simple habit that's not a big deal. You know, we're not saying you need to be broken and this will fix you. What we're saying is this is a bit like going to the gym or eating well for your body. This is what you do for your mind. And if you just do it, every few days, you will find you'll help yourself out. And therefore, as it's not a big deal, we're hoping the uptake will be good.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating concept, and I can see how it would work and bypass. I mean, a lot of people do journaling, and they say that journaling's much the same. I'm really challenged with journaling because I'll sit down and I've got that filter on that, sort of
Yeah.
okay, doesn't go deep, and then
that's the thing with journaling, I think. So journaling is brilliant. I've done it a lot, but it's slow. And if you're one of those people who think quite quickly, your conscious brain will keep up with your journaling.
Yeah.
And therefore you will filter because you won't get as deep. The beauty of talk it out is if you are a fast thinker, if you talk quickly enough, your conscious brain will have to let go because it won't be able to, keep tabs of what you're saying. And therefore you get into your subconscious quicker, especially when you're walking. So actually, talk it out is designed for people like yourself and myself, Jürgen. It'll get you deeper faster.
Yeah. Yes, I can see how it could work because there have been occasions where, and I suppose there's been a level of excitement involved here, so that might be the kinesthetic part of it, where I've said some things, and it's been a long sort of story or something like that, and then because somebody was recording and I listened back and why did I say that? It's sort of
yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, funnily enough, we were building an AI version of this, and we had to make a load of recordings. Just to feed the machine because it needed some data to work from. So I was recording myself. We had about 20 people recording themselves every day for like 3 weeks. And what was really interesting is, on the first day or so, we would record ourselves and then we'd make a cup of tea and listen back to the recording. And as you listen back to it, you go, oh, I can't believe I said that. Oh, that's really interesting. If you do that for a couple of days, you don't need to listen back to it. What you notice is as you talk, you will spot the insights popping up in the moment. And you'll spot them because you'll have an energetic change. You'll have a state change. So you'll say something and it'll make you angry. It'll make you excited. You'll get clear or you'll get blank. There'll be something that happens to you. And that's usually when your subconscious is saying, pay attention to this. And if you do it for 10 minutes, you might only have 2 or 3 times that those insights drop out, but they are killer insights. They are the insights that you need to pay attention to because they could change your life. Now, the way the app's designed is that as you're talking, you'll just be able to capture those insights without breaking your subconscious flow. So you can be talking and you'll just basically click a button and whatever you say next drops out in text and audio so that those little nuggets are safe with you forever. And actually the recording disappears. It's a bit like Snapchat. That will go away so you don't have loads of data. But those little insights will be there for you to play with. And that's the genius of how it works. And then obviously you can see how those develop over time and you can use those in your work. But yeah, I think listening back to recordings is an important step to train yourself in it. So it's interesting that you've had that insight too, that when you listen, you go, I had no idea I said that.
Yeah.
Because that's the nature of how we process.
Okay. So the app has an AI component that kind of picks up insights and...
Yeah, it will do. We haven't got the AI built yet because you can imagine it's going to cost a lot of money. We are talking to Microsoft about them helping us with that. So that's going to take a while. But what we will have is a manual way of dropping out insights. So when you notice that you've said something interesting, you just basically, we're not quite sure of the function yet, but it looks like you click a button and whatever you say next will be taken out of it.
Okay.
And it will be dropped out so that you've got those because it's really important you can do that. But what's also really interesting is that when you get into the power of untangling thinking, yes, it's brilliant for well-being. And obviously I invented it for creativity and for innovation. But it's brilliant for productivity and focus. So we've just done an experiment. We started off today talking about how I get my energy right. And I said I do a morning routine. Well, we've just done an experiment where we've had a load of people do 5 minutes of talk it out first thing in the morning to just get clear on what their big thing is for that day. And then we've got them to do 10 minutes at the end of the day to review what they've done and what they've learned. Okay. And the results are extraordinary because we knew reviewing your day would be pretty important as well as setting it up. But I've just got the numbers in and, people's energy is up around 20%. Their clarity is up 22%. They feel 26% more in control. But check this out. 35% of them feel as if they're using their talents every day compared to when they started, right? So it's gone up 35%. But 55% increase in having a positive impact every day. 55%.
That's huge.
And this is just because people are actually becoming conscious of where they're going and then what they've achieved, which I think is a wonderful thing that we could give everyone.
Hmm.
And of course, whilst doing this, guess what? Their mental well-being improves because they're processing all the stuff in their subconscious, and therefore they're getting more clarity. So I think this is good for business and it's good for everyone. And that's why I'm so, excited about getting it out into the world.
Sounds fascinating. So I'm going to have to look for the app when you launch. So it hasn't launched yet.
Yeah,
Right?
it's out in January. Yeah.
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 I'll have to look for that. I know we'll link to some information about Talk It Out in the show notes, because I know you've got kind of some suggestions as to how you can do it manually until the app comes in.
Absolutely. And actually, we've got everything on how you can do it in an analog way. We've got a way of doing it with your phone. It's not going to be as slick, but it'll start you off. And if you sign up for it, we will send you the app immediately as soon as it comes out. So if you go to the link, you'll get all that info.
It's great. Yeah, I know. I can attest to the kinesthetic part of it. I know that I've been doing lots of solo bike riding over this last 6 months because of social distancing and that. Normally, so I'm a big bike rider, but normally we go out in a group every morning and we have a coffee afterwards, have a bit of social interaction, and that second part of it, the coffee and social interaction, have dropped, and many of us are riding solo. And I find that
Right.
riding solo, when I've got nobody to talk to, and that there's so much stuff comes up and ideas.
Yeah.
I come back often with 5 or 6 ideas after an hour's riding. So, and that's without talking. So I need to talk.
It's an absolute winner. Our MD at Upping Your Elvis, he's a big distance swimmer. He'll do like 4.5 hours across Lake Coniston. And you know what? If I give him something to think about when he goes in, oh my God, we get good stuff when he comes out. And we've all done it, right? I mean, I wrote my first book after going walking in the hills near Solio in Switzerland. And as I was walking through the hills, the whole vision of the book came out, and I just came back and wrote it. It was really easy because I'd accessed my subconscious through kinesthetic, movement. So we've all done it many times. It's just being more disciplined about making it part of our daily practice, I think.
Love it. Yeah. All right. Now, we touched on lockdown and people working from home, being in isolation. How are some of these concepts we've talked about, how do they play out in people working from home? I mean, the culture and the energy, the culture of being your best and not necessarily having to fit into a mold. How do you see working from home and the situation most of us find ourselves in over the last few months playing into that in a positive or a negative way?
I think it's an amazingly positive opportunity. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of us all being positive deviants. Okay, and what I mean about that is, we're not designed for business. We are literally designed to be hunter gatherers on the savannah, and therefore a lot of our design does not fit, the daily practice of working 9 to 5 and sitting at a desk. So I think we need to deviate from those cultural norms by knowing what makes us tick and learning how to make that show up every day. But I'd say it's a positive deviant because we're doing it for the benefit of the business. That's really important. Now, there's never been a better time to experiment with being a positive deviant, because if you're working from home, you get way more freedom, right? You've got more of a chance to do things your way. And I've run so many sessions on how to get your energy right in lockdown. There's some classic things you can do. And I'm very interested in physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual energy. And I'll give you a classic example from physical. Now, this is something you can't often do very easily in the office, but it's a game changer. If there's one thing that you want to do to change your overall energy, and like I'm talking about the engine of your energy, it's sleep, right? If you get your sleep right, it makes a huge, huge difference. Now, regardless of who you are and how well you sleep at night and how obsessed you are, I mean, I've got an Aura ring for biofeedback to look at my sleep every night, and I'm pretty obsessed by it. Regardless of how well you sleep, you will find that actually there are times that you have a lull. And the truth is, we did some work with a guy called Nick Littlehales, who's a sleep coach. We're not designed for monophasic sleeping. We're not designed to sleep just once. We're actually designed to be polyphasic. In lockdown, you can do that, right? So we can have a nap. It's a lot easier now than ever before. And what I've been doing with my clients is I've been saying, look, around the kind of 1:30, 2 o'clock mark, if you've noticed your energy goes, which many of us experience, even if we have 8.5 hours sleep, we experience that. Get your head down. Just show, you don't even have to sleep. 20 minutes max, you will come back with more energy. And so many people have adopted it. Now, that's just one example of what you can do in lockdown that you might not ordinarily be able to do. But my belief is, if you play with your energy now, when you've got more freedom and more chance to experiment, when you go back, you'll be way more dangerous, because you will understand what it is that makes you tick and what gives you better energy. And then if you can keep that consistent in the work environment, you are going to be super dangerous. So that's a lot of the work I've been doing recently.
Mm. Yeah, I spoke to neuroscientist Dr. Fiona Kerr, going back quite a while now on the show, but she talked about the importance of daydreaming to clear your mind, but
Yeah.
she also talked about the value of having short naps during the day.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
They're great. And there's so many things we can do. I mean, simple stuff like, we're designed to move. As hunter gatherers, we were always moving to go and get some more food, right? And therefore that's our programming. One of the biggest problems in lockdown is people just sit looking at cameras all day long and they don't have any breaks, and they wonder why it's painful. So, 90 minutes max before you have to go off and do at least 20 minutes of movement. It doesn't have to be big movement, but you've got to get away and go and do something. And actually, for some people, this is a revelation. I mean, funny enough, I was working with some people at Nike who, are all about physicality, right? And they were working from 7 in the morning till 9 at night at the start of lockdown, on screen all day, and wondering why it was painful. And I'm going, guys, move, put on those fantastic sneakers you make, get out there. It's simple stuff, but it makes a difference.
Walk and talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great. All right. So what are some of the things, I mean, you talk about generating energy by reframing negativity. So you hear a lot of negativity, particularly on the news, and I'd go on lots of Zoom conferences and people will say, "Oh, look, isn't it sad that we can't meet with other people?" And I say, "Well, you can actually talk to a lot more people these days. It's just not in physical proximity." How can we reframe a lot of that negativity so that our own energy isn't impacted by it? So we can kind of look at it and say, "Well, yeah, forget it."
Yeah. It's a good question. It's a good observation. So I mean, again, the truth of it is we are built to be negative. So we, again, going back to being cavemen, if we see a bush rustling in the distance, we don't go, "Oh, I wonder if that's Jurgen coming back with breakfast." We go, "Ah, it's going to eat me," right? And 9 times out of 10, it's you with breakfast, and that's great. But the one time it's not, I'm delighted that I acted negatively. It's a survival instinct, right? So we have exactly the same design today. So we cannot help but look at things and go, "Ah, it's going to eat me." There's a danger in there somewhere. Now, so the first thing about dealing with that is just to accept it and go, "Well, that's part of my programming." Do not beat yourself up. Otherwise, you've got negativity on negativity. That does not help. However, I think the simplest way to get out of that cycle is to, number one, become aware of it. If you have no awareness, you'll keep doing it, right? Number two is then you can practice positivity by in every conversation doing a bit of appreciation about what's happened. So every morning I text or phone everybody in my team and say, "What are you excited about today?" Yeah, and then at the end of the day I go, "What are you grateful for? What happened today that was brilliant?" And just by doing so, they become more aware of the positivity and they start to spot it more, because it's like selective attention. Yeah. So we can all do that. That's a very simple thing to do. I think the other thing is monitor what you see and what stimulus you take in. I don't watch the news. It's I read one newspaper a week, which is a summary of everything going on, so I know what's happened. But I do not give myself the constant feed of news reporting that a lot of people do, and then they wonder why they're feeling depressed.
Yeah.
I mean, news is designed to keep you hooked by being traumatic and dramatic and negative. And actually, I think it's a bit of a cancer in our society, because we know good news does not keep people hooked. So guess what? Boom! Here's more disaster. And actually, people are just totally hooked to it. I know people who will be, they'll have a news feed behind them 24/7, and then they wonder why. Actually, oh, it's a bit of a blue day. Well, just stop looking at it. Is my advice. Now, that doesn't mean to say disconnect from what's happening out there and and actually don't take responsibility for what's going out there, but manage your feeds is my advice.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and when I say news, I also mean people. All right, because I'm sure everyone who's listening to this, you know, some people who are very positive and shiny and bright. You know, they're the unicorns in the world, and we also know some who, you know, they could be having the best time of their life and they can still find a problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's a sunny day and we've got this wonderful picnic, but the champagne's not quite cold enough.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? They're those type of people. I manage them out of my life. I don't need more negative people. And it's a very important thing. When I recruit for my business, you know, one of the number one things that I'm recruiting for is positivity, because I want people that can see the possibility that comes from it. And I want them to say, I don't know how we're going to make this work, but we'll work it out. You know, I need that kind of attitude. So I think there's a lot you can do about it. And if you, you know, when you tune into this, if you take responsibility, it is a life changer.
Mm.
If you don't, there's too much gray and there are too many clouds.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, from my point of view, that's not to say, you know, you used the example earlier about being cautious if something's coming out of the bushes at you when you're not really sure what it is. So that is a wise move. You don't need to be positive about everything and expect that everything will work out. There is a balance between taking action and taking responsibility for things that may not be working out, that and taking ownership of the things that you can control, but at the same time not, as you said, not beating yourself up for having a reaction with, oh no, not more bad news.
Exactly. And I'm not suggesting rose tinted spectacles where everything's perfect, because it's not. But you know, we use our critical thinking to identify issues, and specifically to your audience who are into innovation. Once you've identified, you know, the project and the brief and the thing you're working on, you have to get positive if you're going to come up with great insights and great ideas, right? Otherwise, you'll just come up with, you know, the usual barriers, which is it won't work, it'll cost too much money, we can't do that. So it's about actually using it at the right time as well. And one of the right times is if there is something coming out of the bushes to eat you, that's a great time to be negative.
Yeah.
Now, I hope that won't happen to any of our listeners, but you know, if it does, that's a good part of our programming, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's again, it's contextual, isn't it? It's contextual.
Yeah.
But in business, what I would say is 9 times out of 10, it's better to be positive.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, you know, coming out of the bushes example, because it reminded me, I watched Out of Africa again yesterday. So, you know, the movie Meryl Streep and Robert Redford, I mean, it's a classic movie, probably showing my age a little bit because Meryl Streep was very young in that. But, you know, she's a brilliant actress. I just love her as an actress. And there's this one scene where she's got her back against the tree. She's come off her horse and buggy, and there's a lion about 2 meters or 3 meters in front of her, kind of looking at her and inspecting her and prowling around. And then Robert Redford's off to the side with the gun, and he's kind of got the gun pointed at the lion, and she's saying, shoot it, it's going to eat me. And he said, no, I'll wait a little bit more. So he's taken the more positive light. He said, she's just eaten. So it's a lioness. She's just eaten. She doesn't like your smell anyway. She doesn't like the perfume. And eventually, of course, the lion moves off, because this is early in the movie, so can't
Robert Redford, too cool. Huh? Yeah. Too cool. I like that.
But yeah, that's. I thought, you know, I wonder what she was thinking at that time.
Well, it's nice because, like, you know, about 6 scenes later, she takes on a lion with no fear whatsoever.
That's right.
So I think she learned.
Yeah, with a whip.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly. Yeah. All right. Okay. Now, so talk it out. So, what are the applications you envisage for that beyond just sort of people's mental well-being? Because obviously that's what the app primarily is for, and you've made it. You're going to make it freely available to everybody.
Sure. So it's a good question. So obviously free apps are never free. You have to pay for them somehow, right? So I'm going to make it free to as many people as we possibly can. The way we're going to fund it is through business productivity, you know. So how can I use that for, you know, I talked about how you can start your day and end your day using it. You can use it for planning meetings, because a lot of people turn up to meetings without being clear on their objectives. Talking It is a great way of getting clear on it. You can use it for one-on-ones. You can use it for reviews. There's lots of productivity stuff in there. We're also going to be experimenting on how it works for consumer research, because obviously if it's about untangling thinking, then that's a useful thing around research, because obviously in a focus group or doing quant, you only get a surface level
Mm.
amount of feedback. If you can go deeper, you're going to get more into people's motivations. So we're talking about piloting that with Unilever in the near future, and we're going to use that on some of their brands. But we're definitely excited about that as a kind of consumer research piece, and I think it'd be great for insight for innovation.
Mm.
We're also looking at how we can use it within therapy. So a lot of people, if they see a therapist, they might see them, once a month. A lot of life happens between that. If you can do a talk it out, quite regularly between those therapeutic sessions, and actually send the output to your therapist, it can keep that work going, which is another great application. So those are the kind of the main buckets. But I mean, obviously, the primary objective is well-being. We just want people to be able to lead more extraordinary lives, be more in control about how they show up and how they feel every day, and know that they're not alone. They've got what they need, really, if they just have the right approaches to be able to process every day and not be in the black hole so many people are.
Mm. So if I understand that correctly, there'll be a base application which will be primarily aimed at helping people if they're feeling a bit down and helping them to
Absolutely.
talk it out. And then,
Well, not just feeling down, but anybody who just wants to look after their mind the way they look after their bodies. Yeah. So avoiding being down, really.
yeah, of course, it's a bit like what the attitude we now have to health and physical fitness. So we've got we don't wait until we get sick until we take care of our physical well-being. So we do exercise, we watch what we eat in order to stay healthy rather than wait until we get sick and then change things.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, what we need to do with our minds. Exactly the same.
Great. But then there'll be all these other modules that go on top of it that you pay for then.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and not a lot. We're talking about a small investment, but the investment will go into making sure that it's free for everybody else. Because I've built a couple of apps before. I had no idea how much servers cost to run, so I'm not making that mistake again. But yeah, the business community that we've talked to so far, everyone has been very positive about supporting it and plugging it into their organizations. And when we do the productivity stuff, for example, we should be able to design that in so it fits with Microsoft My Analytics, so that you can actually use it as part of your IT infrastructure, so that it helps you do your job. And therefore, there is a value to that. So companies will pay quite happily, a small subscription level, and that will fund helping it go out to the rest of the world for free. And I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah. Love it. Great. All right. Well, I'm just conscious of the time here, so I think it's a good point here to move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round, and it's designed to help our audience who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field with some tips from your experience. So I've got 5 questions, and hopefully you'll inspire the listener to go and do something awesome today as a result.
Great. Shoot away.
Yeah. What's the number one thing you think anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
The number one. Well, look. So years ago, I remember being asked this question when I was being interviewed, and I said it's all about great insight. But I would say I have moved a long way on that. For me, it's all about realness. The key to innovation for me is to do more stuff, experiment, get your hands dirty, and then you get perfect data back and you learn from it. The worst innovators that I know lock themselves behind closed doors and debate the future with loads of data. You don't learn anything from that. The ones that learn go out and do it, and they do it cheap, they do it fast, and they keep iterating. So my number one tip is just do it more, make it real, and then you'll naturally get more energy and more learning.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's the lean startup model in some ways, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And also, if you're on the wrong track, you don't waste a lot of time.
No, exactly.
Continuing down that path.
So, I mean, so many of my clients, they will polish it until it's absolutely perfect in their eyes, and then go, "Hey, world, do you want it?" And then when the world go, "Nah, not really," it's such a waste. They could have learned that months ago for a fraction of the money. So get it out there and learn. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Well, I think so number one is I listen to my inner voice a lot. So there are certain ideas that I've had over time that will not leave me alone, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is my subconscious is going, look, this one actually adds up. So listen to it. If it nags you and bugs you, you have to do something with it. Okay. So that's number one. That's really important. Number two, I do experiment a lot. So I do a hell of a lot of just trying things out and getting feedback. Number three, and this is vital, don't think you can do it alone. So I surround myself with brilliant people, and I get help from them as much as I possibly can in a cool, karmic way. I will help them back because that's part of the deal. But
Mm.
the old kind of model of we invent all our own stuff and then we get out into the world and we have full ownership is very old fashioned. No one can do everything these days. No one has the expertise. No one should try and do it all on their own. There are brilliant people all around this planet, and we're more connected now than ever. So reach out to the people who are the best that can help you unlock it, and you will be forever grateful. So that's the other
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it's great advice. And I discovered something the other day. We were looking into some software, and I discovered something that's interactive learning software. And I thought, wow, this is brilliant. I wonder how much this is. And it's open source. So,
Amazing.
can,
It's
yeah,
what's out there is incredible these days. It's incredible.
yeah. And there's so much more open source out there. I keep stumbling on things. I think this is amazing, and it's open source. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and obviously, the open source model is lots of people working together to build it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, it's amazing what's out there. It's just about being able to, to tap into that. And we've just been building some stuff. We were doing, like as I said, an AI version. I've got no idea about this stuff. I had to find some people that really understood it, and what they plugged us into is incredible. But if I hadn't had them being energetic and enthusiastic about, changing the planet like I am, we wouldn't have had that. So it's really important, to think who here can really accelerate things, and then get them as excited as you. If you're working on stuff that has a proper purpose, that unlocks genius work. If it's another job for them to do, you get average
Yeah.
performance, right? So you've got to learn how to inspire.
Mm. Yeah, that's a key one too.
Yeah.
All right. Now, maybe you've answered this. What's one of the resources you use most often?
Like a resource to help me innovate and think differently.
Yep.
Yeah, so well, obviously I use Talk It Out a lot, but my other
Mm.
thing is I've got an 85-inch screen on my wall that I is fully interactive, and a friend of mine has a business called EngageWorks that's got some really neat software for collaboration, and I'm really visual, so I'm one of these people that I love to get things up on boards and be able to move things around and make it work for
Mm.
me, and it works an absolute treat. I've just written my last book on it, and it's so much easier than just having piles of paper everywhere, which is
Yeah.
what I used to do. So yeah, that's a bit of tech that some tech hinders you, that tech releases you, and I'm delighted to have that.
So this is essentially a giant tablet computer that's on the wall.
It is, but they've done it really funky. It's a bit like there's a few different applications out there that are not bad, but here's it. EngageWorks. It's called Co-Create. It's so human. It's a bit like an Apple interface. It's really intuitive. It's very, very easy. You can just pull things in, and you can share it with people. You get other people involved in it. It's really useful.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of one of these glass panels you see on some of the sci-fi shows.
It's getting that way. I tell you,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
getting that way. I mean, it's pretty neat. And obviously with all this stuff, if you need to be trained in it, it doesn't work. This is one that you can
Mm.
work out yourself. And they have built, massive walls of this for big consulting companies. They do all sorts of different ones. But this one for a home, game changer for
Yeah,
me. Because if I can see it and I can play with it, I'm all good.
yeah, yeah. I'm all envious now because I'm thinking of my simple whiteboards here that I
Well,
just that I,
I've used them for many years and they've worked absolutely fine. Well, the beauty
yeah.
of this is it's just easier for sharing, it's easier for
Mm.
collaboration. And obviously, it's one of those things that you can just make a bit more energetic than I used to make. I mean, I've the number of trees I've killed through flip charts, I still feel guilty about. So this is making me feel better.
Mm. Great. All right. Now, what's the best way to keep a client on track?
Really important question. So for me, the most important thing is to get the right brief at the beginning that you both sign up to and you are in total agreement with, and make sure that there is one client. I know that sounds a bit strange,
Mm.
but
Mm.
if I get a brief from a board, I won't take it. I'll say, who's the one person on this board that I'm reporting to that has responsibility and accountability for it, and they can broker the rest of the board, but they're my person.
Mm.
Otherwise, you end up with 8 different opinions, and managing that client to make that decision is really important. And then you get clarity about the brief, and then it's constant review and communication. That's what it's all about, because things will change as you go through it naturally. but you've got to make sure you keep getting back on the same sheet. And then
Yeah.
the other thing is, I'm a huge advocate for constant feedback. So every time you do something, what was great about that? What could be even better? Constantly ask that and get into the data of it. And that's a two-way conversation. Because actually, when you work with a client, you shouldn't get to the end of it going, "Oh, thank God that's over." You should be going, "I'm really going to miss them. We've got a really deep relationship, and we've done some magical work together. I can't wait for the next one." And that happens when you're constantly learning together, and you've got this kind of, this way of being.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much in that. I mean, the feedback, I love the feedback part because, people are kind of afraid of feedback. But if you get to that relationship where you can give each other honest feedback that's constructive and that is kind of points a better way forward through improvements, that's a gift.
Absolutely. Personally, I can't work without it. I don't know why anyone would try, because
Yeah.
you're working blind, and that means there is no way you're going to do good work. So you have to be able to do that in a cool and simple human way. And I think what a lot of people do is they get ego involved.
Yeah,
They think, oh,
absolutely.
they didn't like this, therefore they don't like me. That's not the
Mm,
same thing. They didn't like this because we've never done this before in this context. And it's, let's isolate what I did versus who I am. Those are
mm,
different things.
mm. Good advice. All right. Now, what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves, to be their very own Elvis?
So for me, it's all about really staying true to who you are. And life is a learning experiment, right? We're constantly learning how we can show up and create impact in a way that puts a smile on our face. And you know what? You don't get taught that at school, and you don't
Mm,
get taught that in jobs. You have to play an experiment and work it out for yourself. And for me, that's been the richest part of my life experience, is getting some things right and getting some things wrong. And you've just got to keep tuning yourself up to it. And then once you get more attuned to it, make sure the stuff that's important to you shows up every single day. Don't settle for a life that's half what it could be. We all have an opportunity to have an extraordinary day every single day. And a lot of people don't do that because they actually settle for something worse. And it's a terrible waste of life for me. We've only got today. Tomorrow might not happen.
mm,
So keep experimenting, tune yourself into what it is that gives you that buzz, and then make sure you keep your standards high so it shows up for you, on an hourly basis. And then you'll always go to bed at night going, that was a good day.
mm. Yeah, I love it. And you always have a choice, right? You always have a
Always.
choice that today's going to be a good day.
Exactly. And a lot of people think that they're victims and they don't have choice.
Mm, mm,
A lot of people, when they work, they think, I have to work for money, therefore I can't choose my job. There's so many ways to make money. You have choice in which job you do and how you do it and how you show up. And just because the company has a way of doing things doesn't mean to say you can't change the way that works for you. So step up and own it, and realize that actually, you've got all you need to live that brilliant life right now and get on with it.
mm. Yep, we all have all we need inside us. And
Absolutely.
and if we can tap into it, which is what your Talk It Out is all about, helping to tap into a lot of that stuff that's unconscious, that will move us forward in a lot of ways.
I agree.
Hmm. All right. Well, this has been fabulous, Chris. Now, where can people find out more about you and download the Talk It Out guides that are available right now? Find out about Talk It Out and also about your books, and maybe even get in touch to say thank you.
Oh, well, it would be lovely to be in touch with your listeners. So Talk It Out. If you go on talkitout.app, you will get all the information about how to do it analog now and how to get things going before the app comes out. And you can sign up for it so that the app comes straight to you when it is launched in January. So talkitout.app. For my work with organizations, uppingyourelvis.com. You can find out everything there about me. And I've also got a site for me as an author and a speaker, which is Barez-Brown.com. And all of those you can get in touch. If anyone ever wants to play and make this world spin a little bit better, I am there, because that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, great. And we'll post all those links in the show notes as well, so you can click straight through from the blog post. Now, do you have any parting advice for our listener today, Chris?
I think the most useful thing that I have learned is that if it doesn't feel right, change something.
Hmm.
That's my number one bit of advice. And this is applicable to life, and this is applicable to an innovation project. You know, our subconscious is definitely where our genius lives, and it does talk to us on a daily basis. And it tells us things that we just need to listen to more. And when we're innovating and we're trying to lead a more brilliant life, you know, we always have choices. You know, we have different ways of doing things, and our subconscious will tell you when you've made a bad choice. You know, and it'll do that by making you feel like it's hard work.
Yeah.
So tune yourself into that energy, and if it feels like it's tough, change something.
That's great advice. And I learned this the hard way. Sort of in the tail end of my corporate career, I spent 2 years sort of really, getting up out of bed in the morning saying, "Oh, I've got to go to work again."
Yeah.
And I had 23 years or so before that where I was totally the opposite. I really loved what I was doing, excited, full of energy. And it took me 2 years to realize what was wrong. And it was, I was living out of congruence with my values because there were some things that had changed and I didn't agree with the changes, and they were sort of at odds with my beliefs. And so I just sort of went along with it. And so I was living out of alignment with my values and I felt bad.
Yeah.
But, that was all unconscious until I kind of came to that realization, hang on, it's can't go on.
Well, you know, it's an amazingly common story, and people will live with that uncomfortable feeling for an incredibly long time. You did it for 2 years. I know people who've done it for most of their careers, truth be told. But, you know, the sooner you can tune into that and then make a change, the more chance you've got for opportunity and more innovation in your life. So it's a great thing to learn how to do.
Wonderful. It's great advice to leave the listener with today. Finally, Chris, who's someone else I need to get on this podcast and why?
Well, I'm going to give you a couple of my heroes. I'm going to give you two. And I'm going to give you two because they are partners in an organization. Two amazing mentors for me. They founded an organization called What If, which is an innovation consultancy. And I learned nearly everything about innovation from these two guys. They innovate on all sorts of different things, and they can tell you more about innovation than anyone else I know. It's Matt Kingdon and Dave Allen. And for me, they are both genius.
All right. Well, we'll get an intro to Matt and Dave from you, and we'll see if we can get them on the show, maybe together or separately. We'll see what we can work out.
Well, if you go for two, there's a good chance you'll get one.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Chris. Well, thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights with us today. I've really enjoyed our conversation and learned a lot, particularly about Talk It Out. I was thinking walking's involved, but it's Talk It Out.
Talk it out, yeah.
Yeah. And, how that can be applied to a whole range of things is really fascinating, as well as a lot of other insights about energy and, being true to yourself and so on. So thanks so much and all the best for the future, and let's stay in touch.
Yeah, would love that. Thank you so much, Jürgen.
I hope you enjoyed that engaging, energetic and insightful conversation with Chris and took something away from his episode. I love Chris's talking it out approach to access your own thinking at a deep level and get inspiration from your subconscious. I'm curious to know what you took away from Chris's episode. Leave a comment below the blog post, which you can find at innovabiz.co/Chris Barez-Brown. That is ChrisBarezBrown. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Chris Barez-Brown. You'll also find some contact information there for getting in touch with Chris, as well as links to his website, the Upping Your Elvis website, his books, his social media pages, the Talk It Out page, and also the other resources we spoke about in today's conversation. Chris suggested that we have a conversation with Matt Kingdon and Dave Allen of What If on a future InnovaBuzz podcast episode. So Matt and Dave, keep an eye on your inboxes for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Chris Barez-Brown. Tune in again to the next episodes of the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we've got even more fantastic guests lined up, including author and master inventor Neil Sahota and Sonia Zebek and Dan Archow of Papillon. Thanks for listening to this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show to be reminded of new episodes. It's free to subscribe. Leave a review if you like. Even if you don't like me, I'm okay with that. I'm asking you to leave a review because it helps other people find this show. Go to InnovaBuzz.co to join our marketing transformation community and access a free gift my team and I made for you. It's the Marketing Master Mini Class. We want to give you everything you need